Hi, everyone. Welcome to Maddie's Community Conversations. Happy February. We're wrapping up the month, and I'm so happy to be here with our co-host, Kayla Wade, who's been a fantastic co-host for this month. Kayla Wade joined the Humane Society of Charlotte in October 2020 and currently has the position of Assistant Shelter Operations Manager, as well as being the co-chair of HSC's DEI Committee. Kayla has always dreamed of being able to help strengthen the bond between pet and owner by providing behavioral assistance to those in need, keeping pets in loving homes. Please welcome Kayla, and thank you so much for being here this month with Murphy.
Here she is in her glory again. I'm gonna let her free because she's making biscuits on my lap, and while I appreciate the affection, I just can't handle that right now. All right. Well, thanks for having me and Murphy. I'm happy to be here, and I'd love to share our question of the day with everyone. So, how have you or your organization celebrated and honored Black History Month? So you guys can go ahead and pop it in the chat and I'll go ahead and answer first. At my organization, like Sheila said, I work at the Humane Society of Charlotte, which is in North Carolina. We have an internal monthly newsletter that our D&I committee, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee, puts out every month. This is a staff committee, and we all kind of meet once a month to kind of come up with some ideas for the newsletter. In the newsletter, we highlight local minority-owned businesses, media like books, movies, TV shows with BIPOC and or LGBTQ representation. And so for this month, we specifically only highlighted Black businesses in our community, local events, media, along with a blurb of what Black History Month is and where it came from, and how you can continue to support and celebrate it even after the month is over. So that's kind of what we did at my organization. For myself, as a Black girl, I celebrate by just being my authentic self. I even wore my hair in natural afro state as a way to show that. It's always tempting to try to hide it to be presentable, but I decided to go against the grain and just wear it how it shows up. Alrighty, let's see.
Folks, let us know in the chat, but I love all of that, Kayla. Thank you for sharing. I know I personally made an effort to prioritize reading books by Black authors, and one that I wanted to share with you all is Cursed Daughters by Oyinkan Braithwaite. I love this. I think it was so important to look at something written by a lens that we often don't, prioritize in a lot of our reading. So I thought I loved it. I highly recommend if anyone wants it, I'll send it to you. But thank you and happy Black History Month.
Yes, happy Black History Month. If you guys have any other answers, feel free to pop it in the chat and I can talk about it later. But so for now, we can go ahead and jump right in and get started. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speakers for today. So today we are joined by Stephanie Medrano, Director of Operations, and April Gaspar, Community-Based Programs Manager at Stray Cat Alliance. So Stephanie Medrano transitioned from a supervisory banking career into animal welfare in 2016. She joined Stray Cat Alliance at the inception of its Safe at Home program, an innovative initiative designed to prevent underage kittens from entering the South Los Angeles shelter system. Deeply committed to community-centered solutions, Stephanie has been instrumental in building trust, resources, and access for South LA residents caring for neighborhood cats. Her leadership journey at Stray Cat Alliance includes roles as Safe at Home Director, Director of Community-Based Programs, and Director of Operations. That's busy, staying busy. Guided by a strong belief that lasting change happens through community support and empowerment, Stephanie is driven to uplift residents while advancing humane, effective care for cats. Thank you, Stephanie, for doing all that. All right, and then April Gaspar. April grew up in South Los Angeles. She started as a Safe at Home foster, leveled up to Trap Neuter Return, TNR, and now works as part of the Safe at Home team that helps the kitties and community members in South Los Angeles. So please, everyone, join me in welcoming Stephanie and April, and I'm excited to hear all about the cats and what you do to help them.
Hello, thank you so much for having us here today. We're really excited to always be able to share our experiences with everybody, with other leaders in animal welfare in our community. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing our presentation. course, my computer is moving extra slow now. Here we go.
Yeah, looks good.
Perfect. Okay, so you all know us. I'm Stephanie Medrano, Director of Operations, and you all can see April Gaspar. So we'll go ahead and get started. So April, you can ask the first question.
Stephanie, so I know we were going to do sort of like a little back and forth with our slides. So when was the Safe at Home program launched, and what was the reason for starting it?
So Safe at Home started in 2016. That's when I started with the organization. And one of the reasons why it started, which is obviously the most important reason, is because we know that our underage kittens aren't making it out of the shelter alive. A big percentage of those kittens are unfortunately being euthanized, and that is because our shelter system needs a lot more support from the community and from rescues. These kittens are not sustainable, as we all know, overnight at our shelters. And we really wanted to make a big impact. And we all know that we cannot do it alone as rescue volunteers or employees. So we knew that we had to really tap into our community and really spread that information about how the community is really what's going to make our programs work versus just kind of sheltering ourselves into believing that we're going to do it all or blaming our shelters, so really impacting and tapping into the residents of the neighborhood that we're serving, which is South LA, and having them join us. We know as the program has unfolded that they want to help, and our community is very dedicated to their community cats. So it really started from looking at those numbers, seeing how bad they were, and knowing that we can only improve if we participated and we invited more people to participate. So our second question I'll be asking to April: in which area does the Safe at Home program operate?
So we do work with the 6 city shelters like as a whole. However, the Safe at Home program is specifically designed for the South LA shelter to prevent any kittens entering the South LA shelter. So we do have zip codes that we check and we try to adhere to. But if the community member is more than willing to foster the kitten, there are times we make exceptions, but we do look at our capacity to make sure that those resources aren't being ill-used or misused for something that shouldn't be used.
Okay, so the next question.
Sorry, that was for me to ask for you to you. So, how does this program impact life saving at the South LA shelter?
So I think when you're starting an intervention program, this is like a really important factor and question to always keep in mind. So when you're looking at numbers of intake, this program isn't really meant to affect the intake at the shelter. It's really meant to impact and improve the live release rate at the shelter. So what we are doing is we're at the South LA shelter, and we are impounding the kittens. But instead of the kittens going into the medical area where they can be exposed or expose other cats to any diseases or other illnesses, we're preventing them from entering into those doors, but still in partnership with the South LA shelter. So our kittens are getting an intake ID number, and that's how we're tracking our impact in life saving at the shelter as well, because those numbers should be reflected in their total live outcomes. So again, The kittens are receiving shelter ID numbers so that they're tracked, but they're never actually going into the shelter and seeing the staff there. So it's really helpful for reducing like shelter staff time so that they can use that time to serve other community members, people maybe with an injured animal, people maybe trying to bring in another animal to help them find their owner. So it really alleviates a lot of this time for shelter staff to be able to serve other community members versus the community members who are really just there with a little kitten looking to help that kitten, and then we can take on that responsibility. That includes anybody at the front desk. That also includes their clinic staff, because we are actually doing the intake for that kitten. So we're doing a quick assessment. If the kitten is of age, we have vaccines at in a little space that has been allocated for us at the shelter. So we are giving an FERCP. We're giving flea treatment, a Capstar if the kitten, has fleas, which most of them will. Anything that the kitten needs immediately for intake, our staff is trained to do so. So we take over all of that responsibility. That also helps with community members, their time also, right? So we are pulling people that we're seeing with small kittens. We're telling them, like, come to our table, we can help you. Sometimes people just come to our table on their own because they see us, but that makes it so that people with other needs are also helped quicker. So we're like, it's like double down on the staff time and then helping the community with their time. And then we also help with bilingual support. So we work in the South LA community that has a lot of Spanish-speaking residents. So sometimes if the shelter doesn't have somebody at that time to be able to translate, we also support the shelter with that as well. And then April, can you walk us through what an intervention looks like?
Yeah, so the slide that you're seeing, there's a picture with a table, and that's literally right in front of the South LA shelter. We're set up right next to the door where a lot of community members walk in seeking to get help. So we do try to talk to anyone who has a box of kittens and just any cat or kitten that they have in their arms. We try to get to know our community, asking them questions, not appearing judgmental at all, just very curious. Like, hey, where did you find these kittens? Could there be a mom around? So we do try to engage a lot with our community. We have to remember that, or I at least really like to remember that this isn't just a dream job for me, but a lot of our community members have to see all of this, all of these kittens, in their neighborhood, in their community, and sometimes it's a really terrible feeling to be helpless. So when they go to the shelter seeking for help and they're met with a less than ideal response, we do try to be there as a support, even just somebody to listen to them. Be frustrated. Sometimes that's all the community support that's needed. But we do try to convince community members to foster the kittens that they found. We do talk to them about how they only have until 4 p.m. to be rescued. And we also let them know that we need their help to save those lives. We train them in bottle feeding. Our foster, Eloy, he actually fostered this little kitten called Silverio. He worked at a restaurant as a dishwasher, so he was trying to find a way to take the kitten with him to work, and he found a way to be able to do that. And this is just, an example of how our community members really do go above and beyond, and it's just really tapping into that, talking to them, getting them to open up, and I think that's really important to do so. When you're dealing with the community, we're all human, we all have feelings, and I think we all have like a pretty well understanding of how we can help each other, but they won't know unless we speak with them. and ask them questions. So aside from bottle feeding, we also encounter a lot of kittens with medical issues, upper respiratory infections, diarrhea. Our fosters, sometimes this is their first time ever taking care of a kitten, so we do want to make sure that we cover the basics. We show them how to administer medicine. We tell them the importance of coming back for rechecks. And we do remind them that this is free of cost to them. All they really need to do is invest their time, their love and energy, and meeting us, where they can. So a lot of times our fosters are really, really grateful for just the basic supplies that we provide them, even just flea treatment. So, it really is a blessing to be able to work with our community this way.
And then that's us, like, that's actually the foster that April was talking about, and us feeding that little bottle baby for the first time, to teach him how to do it. We taught him like right outside the shelter. So that's really cool.
Yeah. So, Stephanie, what are some of the challenges we still face today?
So we've done this presentation a few times at like Best Friends, and a lot of the questions that we get is like, how do we get funding for programs like this? And I'll say that, one of the big things that people always ask us about is like supplies. How do you provide supplies to the community? And we do a lot. We get a lot of our actual supplies, like our formula, the heating pads, the miracle nibbles, bottles, directly from like just our wish list on Amazon. So that's not even like the big funding, like medical staffing, if that's what you're thinking of having with your like potential intervention program. But just even like April mentioned, providing those supplies. Those are some of the things that we just get from our normal donors who are just going to our wish list. And we're really successful with that. So even if it's not like a true intervention program where you are supporting the process from beginning to the end, but even just having a wish list and promoting it as much as you can, getting the community to promote it, doing like a food bank type of thing. We are the most successful with getting like kitten formula donated to us and heating pads. So I think funding is a barrier for all of us, right? But I just wanted to share that our wish list for kitten products is always our most successful. And a lot of the time it gets us like through the year without having to purchase anything ourselves. Limited spay neuter resources, that's always an issue. We're very lucky to work very closely to the ASPCA. We've developed a relationship with them. They grant us some spay neuter appointments. One of the big reasons why our kittens receive a shelter ID number 2 is because when we do the official pull from the shelter, the kittens are not spayed or neutered. We receive a voucher and we can use that to offset some of those costs as well. Staffing volunteers is always a barrier, of course. We do find it difficult for volunteers to want to be at the shelter, know that we can't help every cat that's coming in. But we try to keep it really positive, rotate your volunteers and your staff in and out of the intervention process. I'm sure some of you are shelters, so it's not as easy. But if you are supporting the shelter, like rotating that staff and volunteers is really important. Having backup fosters as well. We can convince a lot of people to take the kittens back home, but sometimes, they get home after a few days, realize that it's, harder than they thought it might be. So always working on having backup volunteers and fosters. We rely a lot on like those one-nighter foster feeders. Sometimes we are the one-nighter foster feeders as well. I'm sure all of you participate in that as well. So we do always face a lot of challenges, but trying to figure out ways to work through them is always really important, and having volunteers and staff that are willing to have those conversations and we're always working at 110%, but putting in that little extra is always really important. But I think my biggest takeaway, I'll mention it again, is that Amazon wish list for kitten supplies, because just being able to give somebody formula, even if it's not a full program, is really, really impactful and important for them. Community members have a lot of barriers because people have jobs, people need to support families. So money for supplies, it kind of just feeds into that previous point about making sure that you have a really great wish list. And you're tapping into all those resources because our fosters don't have to buy their own supplies. We're able to provide them space in their home. A bottle baby doesn't need any space. So just having that conversation with them, they're like, oh, I have a dog. Well, your bottle baby is never even going to see the dog because they live in a carrier, so making it like part of the conversation where it's like you kind of have like a little answer for for everything that they have as a reason why they feel they can't do it, until they realize that they do have the capacity to do it. Knowledge, we're there to help them. We're there to help them from first day to the last day. We have a lot of pamphlets and one-sheeters they take home with them. We give them a phone number that they can access us through. And it's a Google number. That's something that we found really helpful. We created a Google number, and then you just get the app on your phone, and multiple people can have this app on their phone. And when a foster needs help, then you're not just one person responding to all of these questions. You can have a whole team. You can have volunteers at the app to their phone. And that's how we support our fosters, is by having multiple people be able to connect with them. And then obviously foster fatigue is important to acknowledge. It's hard to foster. It's hard to foster bottle babies. So we also talk to them about bringing in their family and friends into fostering, sharing the workload. We do it. I take a bottle baby home, and the next day April takes that same bottle baby home. So we have created practices for ourselves that we also share with the community. Share the responsibility of feeding, trade off with your partner. Moms help, kids help. So it really becomes like a whole family event to foster for our program. April, while conducting the kitten interventions, did you find other resources that were needed by our community?
Absolutely. As you all already know, one of the biggest needs in our community is trap, neuter, return. And hand in hand with that, a lot of people who are really generous and kind and compassionate, who want to feed our community cats, they need food. Sometimes they're living on like minimum wage or even government assistance. So any little bit really helps. We also found out that they needed basic supplies like bowls, blankets, toys, carriers even. That's a really big thing. I know when I was growing up in South LA, I didn't see any pet stores, and I didn't even know rescues existed. So we also want to inform our community of the resources available to them, because like I said, a lot of the resources are very unknown to our community members, and unless we tell them about them, they'll continue to be unknown. So the way that we do have a community food pantry, thankfully. You can see our community member here, Maria. Her trunk is full of Meow Mix. She is still actively TNRing in her community, and she sends me her spay-neuter certificates every chance she gets. And that ensures that she continues to stay on the list of the community feeders. And whenever we have large donations of food, open food, any type of food that's really donated for our community feeders, we do let them know, and they're more than willing to come and pick it up because any little bit helps. And I do ask, I know it's a little bit awkward for people to like ask for pictures or like videos, but it really does help you ask on their behalf, let them know, hey, I would love to take a picture of you next to our food. Would you be willing to send me pictures of when you're feeding the cats that you've TNR'd? And we use that to ask for food, ask for donations, because it really does help our community. And whenever people donate like used bowls, blankets, or toys, if we have extra, obviously it goes to our community. So we try to make the best use of all of the resources that we're given, and we try to inform our community members of that as well.
Yeah, and then something that, well, when we're thinking about doing the presentation, we're always like, okay, these are the topics. And then when you're talking about it, you think of new things. So I also wanted to share that our table at the South LA shelter, we also have other resources for like owned pets. So like a lot of our community members maybe sometimes have a cat or dog that hasn't been vaccinated or hasn't been spayed or neutered themselves, or whatever it is. So as we collect information, like we get an email saying that there's a new resource at locally, we always try to have those printouts and handouts at the table too, so then our table becomes more of like a resource center for the community versus just like hyper focused on the hidden interventions, which are important, but we find that once we're there, people have like a greater need, that sometimes those resources aren't easily accessible. They might not be in the language that they speak. So we have a lot of Spanish speakers. We try to translate everything that we have. They might not be accessible because they might only be available if you know how to use the internet or Google on your phone or on your computer. So we do try to have as many handouts at our table as possible. As we get new resources, we try to keep that updated as well. And that's really important for our community members to have access to that. Okay, and then this, we can probably both kind of share some experiences. But we'll talk about a little bit about how our program services have influenced somebody beyond kitten care and empowered them to advocate for animals in their community. And we talked a little bit about like our community feeder, and this is like how we meet them, because they come with a small kitten to the table, and then they're like, well, this is one kitten that I found in my colony of like 100, right? So these are different ways that our community actually gets involved. And I'll talk a little bit about the picture on the right. That was one of our safe at home fosters. She came to the shelter, had a little kitten, became a foster, and then advocated for cats and kittens through Stray Cat Alliance at her church events. So she went to a church that often had like little community events in their parking lot, and she took it upon herself to come ask us for the flyers, ask us for like just other resources, ways to talk about what we're doing to her community members. And she put up like a little type of booth for Stray Cat Alliance as a different type of volunteer now. So that's really exciting to see our community want to spread the word of like the work that they've done, because they're proud of their own success.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to talk about Alma, who is the top left picture. She is a trapper and a foster for us. She works very closely with another trapper called Maria Carmen Gallardo, and her full name is definitely needed because she is a really amazing trapper. Just with our organization alone, she's TNR'd over 500 cats in our community, and Alma has helped with that as well. She's not at the 500 mark yet, but she is amazing. She's in the hundreds. And all of our trappers, I mean, they do work full-time jobs. They're teachers. They have really crazy hours. So it is incredible that they're still putting in the energy, finding the time of day to do this really important work, which is TNR. And we do always try to remind them that they're doing incredible, and we're really lucky to have them work with us, because obviously without their help, we would not have been able to do that. So I think trappers are incredible. That's how I got the trapping bug. And I just really love to see people out there trapping. Do you want to talk about Ronnie, Stephanie?
Yeah. We just wanted to share like some really cool pictures that we had. Sometimes we forget to take pictures when you're out on the field doing the work. I'm sure you all can relate. But this was another situation where we got reached out through kittens, because of kittens, finding kittens born in their backyard in the alley, and kind of, not knowing what to do. So we're like, okay, well, this is the solution. And, I just want to say that we don't always have trap, neuter, return resources. Sometimes we do scale down to just lending out traps and offering our guidance. And sometimes we do have, the funds and the resources to actively help people with TNR. So it is, these programs for us are kind of like, they fluctuate at times. Safe at Home, luckily, we've been able to fully operate this whole time. But other resources like the food pantry, TNR, they do fluctuate based on the resources that we're able to get at that time. So it is important to know that we are not running at like 100% all the time, even though we would love to. We do sometimes have to scale back, but then still try to offer support. So Ronnie, I don't even remember how many cats we trapped in that alley. It was a lot because we had to recruit a lot more volunteers. This is like one day, and I think we did TNR for like 3 or 4 days. And that picture is just one surgery day. So those 2 people that you're seeing, they're neighbors from across the alley, and they joined together to be able to trap and recover and care for the cats in their community. So I find that that's always really cool. And I think the most important thing to realize is that we have returning fosters. Like, people will be convinced by us that they should foster, and then their kitten gets adopted, or they adopt their kitten. That happens a lot. They end up saying like, oh, I don't know what to do with this kitten. And then like even a few days later, sometimes they'll be like, okay, he's my kitten, I'm not going to give him back. But ultimately, a lot of kittens do stay in those homes. But then people want to foster again because they loved the impact that they made. They loved how it made them feel, because I think that's really important as well, to acknowledge that it is like a feel-good experience. And then they liked working with us, which is also just as important, because they felt supported. And even though, sometimes we might miss a call, and sometimes we, some of us maybe want to have a day off. Sometimes it's not always perfect either. So I always like to emphasize that, like, as like an organization that's presenting a program, like, we're not 100% perfect. But we do try to provide those good experiences for people. We try to be understanding, kind. They make a mistake. That's really important, to be super empathetic, because it's happened to me personally as well, So I think them feeling like they were able to form a relationship and became part of the organization is really important. And then we do have a lot of returning fosters, people that want to foster now a senior cat, or want to foster a mom and babies, or want to keep bottle feeding, or maybe took a break for 6 months and are ready to come back. So forming those relationships with people, and trusting that they want to do the right thing too, and teaching them. People love to learn how to do like more intense like medical stuff. So like fluids, give injections. People want to learn those things. So I think trusting them that they'll do a good job, because you're teaching them how to do a good job, is important. You'll have more fosters and returning fosters with people that didn't even think that was an option for them before, because they had no idea that existed. They were just coming to the shelter to look for help with their kitten, and then now they're part of the rescue. So all of that is all really important. And I think that's everything we have to say for our presentation.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Stephanie and April, so much for that information. First off, I have to say I loved the format of this presentation. I found myself having a question in my head, and then the next slide would be the question in my head, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's so cool! They're reading my mind." So I really love the format
Would
of
you like us to
it.
stop sharing, or do you want me to stay on this page?
Yeah,
It's totally
go,
up to you.
go ahead and stop sharing.
Okay.
Thanks. We'll have all that
Oh,
information
now I
on.
can see everyone. That's actually a lot nicer. That's a good call. I can see everyone's faces. But yeah, I just really love that format. That was a new one for me. So if you see me using that, I'll credit you, I promise. And I love how much you mentioned your openness when people, come in needing help. I think that's a really big moment for people to be in a vulnerable state where you say, hey, I need assistance with this. I can't really, I don't have the resources. I don't know what to do. And you guys sound like you're just so open and aren't judgmental, and you're offering so much education, but not in a way where you're assuming that they don't know. You're just saying, here it is, here's the information for you. So I think that really makes a big difference that I've seen. So
Yeah,
let's
I
go
think
ahead and jump in the Q&A. All right. So from Allison Cardona, can you talk a little bit more about how you translate technical terms in Spanish and how you translate foster? Always so curious what resonates with people. And for context, Allison is a Spanish speaker.
I'll go first. I know that April maybe has worked on more of the translating than I have, but we use really like just speaking. We're both Spanish speakers, but we're not experts. We speak Spanish because our parents speak Spanish, so our Spanish is very Spanglish, very slang, very just like common, and that's how we talk to people because that's the best way for them to relate to us and start to trust us. Some people don't know what spay neuter is, and we just say like we're gonna make it so that your cat doesn't have kittens anymore. So sometimes it is like one word translates to a whole sentence. So I think just using the language that you use when you're speaking, not trying to make it I'm a no sabo, yeah. So not trying to make it professional, or trying to make it like technically correct, that's confusing to people and you're not going to get the response you want. And I think sometimes with our Spanish speakers, we like get really comfortable and, we're like joking and having a good time. I think for me, it's just not making it complicated. Sometimes I don't know the word that it translates to, and I'll just explain what it is that I'm trying to explain. And I'm sure that a lot of our Spanish speaking older fosters have kids that sound like me, and it's more relatable for them as well.
Yeah, also, a lot of our fosters do use that word. The Spanish speakers are always calling themselves fosters. They're like, oh, yo soy foster de Stray Cat Alliance. So it's like, it's the term that they're using. And they know what it means. All you have to do is really explain it and they'll start using it and applying it. So they take a lot of pride in that too. Which is why I think it's also important for us to be able to explain things to them and for them to understand. If I don't understand something, I'm not going to try to explain it and then have them magically understand it, right? So I feel like we should also understand where our community is, who our community are, and leading with compassion, because we weren't all born knowing how to care for kittens. We weren't all born knowing that spay neuter is the solution. And a lot of the times we're right there outside of the South LA shelter, so we know what conversations are being had with our community members, and we know whether or not to correct it, right? And we should, because it is impactful to their lives. That one life can change hundreds of lives in their community. So every person that walks into our city shelter is our responsibility too, to make sure that we're creating advocates. And Stephanie and I are both from South LA, so our community is our community, and we do like to have pride in our community. And I know our community members sometimes like Kayla was saying, sometimes it is really difficult to be vulnerable, and I appreciate their vulnerability, and so I try to meet them there too.
Cool. Thank you so much for that. From Melissa Hunter, we want to know what the name of the app is. I think I was also very intrigued about this app that you guys were talking about regarding the how you communicate with the fosters when they have the kittens, and you can kind of have a effort of multiple people kind of pooling in to assist if needed, not just relying on one person who might not be available. So what's that app called? What's the name of that app?
It's just Google Voice. So if you use Google Suites, and it's just Google Voice. So you just go, and I think if you have a Google email, you can just automatically just register to have Google Voice, and it's free. And it's an app on your phone, and people can text you, and they can answer and call. I was trying to find it on my phone. So it's just like, yeah, it's just like this little, I don't know if you could see that, just that little Google Voice app. And then people text us and call, and then anybody who's available can answer that call. I think there's a lot of other apps you can probably use. What we try to do is just so that there's just one number, so it's easy to remember for people, and they don't get confused in having personal numbers. Volunteering staff move on, so I think it is important to have like a general number that kind of lives for a long time, and people can call it and text it, and we can answer it as quickly as we can. Yeah, but it's just Google Voice. But there's a bunch of other ones, I'm sure, that are maybe more helpful to others if they have other features.
Lovely. Yeah, it sounds very accessible. So I love that something that's multiple platforms can use. No matter if you have an iPhone or an Android, everyone can access that. Love that. Awesome.
You can do it on your computer too. I have it up on my computer sometimes too, so I can respond to a text while I'm reading emails.
Awesome. Very cool. All right. You talked a little bit about TNR a bit. From April King ask, after the kittens are raised, do you find people are willing to learn to TNR the cats in their neighborhood if they didn't already want to?
We talked to them about the reality of it, which is they're going to have more babies, and you need to help us so that they don't have more babies. And of course, we do let them know you have to break it down so that it doesn't seem too overwhelming, right? Like the first step is let's canvass the area, see how many cats, who's feeding them. If it's multiple neighbors, then guess what? It's going to be that much easier to TNR. We also try to incentivize by saying, well, you're already feeding these cats. Why don't you just stop at these cats, get them spayed, neutered, and then we'll able to provide you with food, right, from our food pantry. So you just really need to talk to people and see what it is that they need, and if they're able to TNR, and if not, we have our super trappers that help and are willing to go to those communities and talk to them, encourage them. Sometimes that's all they need is just an additional body for them to be like, oh, I guess I can do it by myself. Or even just like getting them in that network of trappers is also really encouraging to someone that's barely starting out. We do offer demos for like how to use a trap. We have we used to have like TNR days where we had volunteers come and they would learn how to care for the cats in the traps. And I think people are pretty curious to like see the behind the scenes. So just getting people involved really is one way to encourage them. But yeah, we do, whenever they have kittens, we let them know there's a mom and there's obviously a male, which is causing all these issues. It's the boys, not the girls. So we do let them know, like, you guys are going to end up finding more kittens. So, like, let's try to do something about that right now.
And speaking of kittens, what happens if someone wants to keep the kittens? Is there an adoption process? Is there a fee? What does that process kind of look like for those finders?
Yeah, so our Safe at Home fosters, like Stephanie mentioned, they often do fall in love with their kittens. Sometimes it's a litter of kittens and they want to keep just one and the others can be adopted. So we obviously want, like, the outcome is, or the goal is to find a home for those kittens. And if they already have a home, then done, right? We do have an adoption fee of $100, but that is waived for our Safe at Home fosters. We're not going to make them pay for a kitten that they found, rescued, and cared for. But But yeah.
Yeah. So I think the point is to create more advocacy and have more information in the community, not to remove cats from the
Right.
community. So we're not trying to take them from South LA to Beverly Hills, right? We want them to stay there, and they'll be healthier, happier, with more knowledgeable ownership. Yeah.
I love that. I love the fee waive for the fosters, like a thank you for doing this. Awesome. All right, I think we have time maybe for maybe one or two more questions. From Christy Schilling, do you just assist the South LA shelter service area, or can anyone in the city shelter areas reach out to you?
So we are physically stationed at the South LA shelter. So if anybody's coming in with cats, with kittens, they're going to see us. But the word has spread over the last 10 years. There is no lack of people reaching out to us, and already starting off by, I can foster these kittens, but I need help. I can foster these kittens, because that's our first question. Can you foster?
Can you foster?
Yeah, you foster. That's because that's like our number one requirement, is that they have to go back home with you, because we just cannot absorb all of those cats into our shelter or into our foster base. I mean, everybody knows that by February 1st, all your fosters are taken. All the ones you've saved already have kittens, you know? So we are physically at the South LA shelter, but we support LA Animal Services. So if that kitten would have entered any of our shelters, we do want to help them. We do try to be more strategic on people that are a little bit like farther away, because we only have our facility. This is where the cat will get a booster. This is where the cat will get spayed or neutered. So if it's a barrier for people to come to us, then that obviously wouldn't work. If they're hesitant about, oh, you're kind of far, like we also have to end up maybe sometimes just giving resources to somebody instead of absorbing them into like our programs. But yeah, we want to support LA Animal Services as far as we can.
Thanks. It sounds like you're able to provide at least something, resource or otherwise, to anyone that kind of comes to the door, which I love that it expands past your local area. All right, we have one more minute left. Should I squeeze in another question? I don't know. I'll do another one. This one's from me, so I wanted to ask. If a shelter wants to implement a similar program to what you all are doing so beautifully there, where do you suggest they start?
I think, well, if you're rescuing and just talking to the shelter, connecting with the management there, I think is really important. Like I said, we're outside the shelter, so public property at this point. But I think talking to the shelter management is really important, and they want the support. Shelters want help. They're not sitting there like, we don't want any help. We know what we're doing. We can save all the cats by ourselves. They know they need the help, right? So I think just like reaching out and trying to get your foot in the door.
Yeah,
reaching out.
we do always get like South LA staff who will be like, oh, stray cat is out there, go talk to them, you know. So we do, I mean, and we're there, so please do talk to us.
Nice. Thank you so much for
just reach out and try to see if you can connect with somebody. And I think what I would love is like rescue to rescue partnership too, like kind of supporting each other. Oh my gosh, that would be amazing. We do sometimes get a text message from another rescue, like, hey, this person, so they can foster. And like, that's amazing. I mean, that's part of life saving, is all of us doing it together. So I think if two rescues can get together and support the community that way, that would be really cool too.
Thank you so much for indulging. I know we're just a minute over, but I always have a question. I'm like, if I could just sneak it in there at the very end, that would just really make my day. So thanks y'all so much for all this, and thank you to the audience. Y'all have been wonderful. Thanks for joining us today. Our panelists will still be available on the Maddie's Pet Forum throughout the week to continue the discussion. So if you have any other questions, please head over there, post some more questions there. Allison's going to drop that discussion thread in the chat. And let's continue this conversation on Maddie's Pet Forum with the reflection question. So, how have you tapped into your community and met them where they're at to work? And that ties in perfectly to this presentation. So community focused and based, and how can we help me help you and help you help me?
Yes, I love the demonstration of community that you're all setting for everybody. Thank you so much. And I used to work at Best Friends when this program launched, so it's really been a joy for me to witness the growth and the positive impact you've had in the community in the past 10 years. So thank you both for everything you're doing, and thank you to the Cat Alliance. We will definitely share any kind of resources on Maddie's Pet Forum. I know that we have 2 learning paths in Maddie's University that we will drop in the chat and also share on the forum as well. But truly, this is such a valuable information. I'm so grateful you could be here. And I'm so grateful, Kayla, that you could co-host with me this month. It's been wonderful. It was way too short. So hopefully we can have you back at, community conversations in the future. And for folks who are able to join us next week, we'll be back with a community conversation with Doctors Emily Weiss and Mike Greenberg on what happens after they go home. And unfortunately, I will not be here as your host for Community Conversations in March, as I'm taking some time off to spend it with my dog, Ziba. But you will be in great hands with our March co-hosts, including Miguel Ruelas, who will be back with us for March. So please definitely join us. And always, if you're interested in hosting or if you have speakers or topics you'd like to hear about, let us know on Maddie's Pet Forum. But thank you all so much for being here today and all that you do.
Thank you.
Thanks.